Anne Fine's 1987 novel Madame Doubtfire was famously turned into the 1993 film Mrs. Doubtfire, which was directed by Chris Columbus and starred the late Robin Williams. Williams plays Daniel Hillard, who assumes the identity of a female Scottish housekeeper in order to spend time with his children following a divorce from his wife. The Oscar-winning film was a huge financial success, making $441 million against its $25 million budget. Mrs. Doubtfire was released in the United States on November 24, 1993 with a PG-13 rating for some sexual references. The film was submitted to the BBFC in the UK in 1993 with a request for a PG rating, but the board went on to issue the film with a 12 for its sexual references. The film's distributors, 20th Century Fox, were unhappy with the BBFC's decision, and discussions ensued with a view to editing the film down for a more commercial PG rating, which would allow under 12s to attend. After a period of discussion between the BBFC and the filmmakers, it was decreed that the sole section of the film that pushed it into 12 territory was the scene where Daniel, in the guise of Mrs. Doubtfire, speaks to his ex-wife's boyfriend Stu in a restaurant towards the end of the film. The BBFC's director at the time, the infamous James Furman, suggested 3 cuts in this scene that would remove all but the tamest of sexual innuendo, which the board felt went beyond public expectations of the British PG rating. Here is the uncut version of the scene as it was first presented to the BBFC.
That's a pretty impressive bauble you got her.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Fellow gives a gift like that, he wants more than a piece of her heart, eh? Bit of a going down payment, huh?
Excuse me?
Oh, you know, dear. Sink the sub. Hide the weasel, park the porpoise. Bit of the old Humpty Dumpty. Little Jack Horny. The horizontal mambo.
Mrs. Doubtfire.
The bone dancer. Rumple foreskin. Baloney bop. Bit of the old cunning linguistics.
Mrs. Doubtfire, please.
Oh, dear. No, I'm sorry. Am I being a little graphic? Sorry. I hope you're up for a little competition.
I beg your pardon?
She's got a power tool in the bedroom, dear. It's her personal jackhammer. She could break a sidewalk with that thing. She uses it in the lights dim. It's like a prison movie. Oh, maybe she hasn't chipped her teeth. Oh. I hope you bring cocktail sauce. She's got the crabs, dear, and I don't mean Dungeness. I'm being blunt as a spoon, aren't I? Forgive me. Oh.
For the filmmakers to get a PG rating in Britain, Furman demanded,
in scene in restaurant when Mrs. Doubtfire is left with man, reduce her references to his sexual intentions and the sexual appetite of his intended by removing lines as follows. A. After reference to Humpty Dumpty, remove further descriptions of sex, Little Jack Horny, the horizontal mambo, the old cunning linguistics. B. Shortly after, remove I hope you are up to a little competition. She's got a power tool in the bedroom. It's amazing she hasn't chipped her teeth. C. Soon after, remove she's got the crabs, and I don't mean Dungeness.
Here is how the scene plays with the cuts demanded by Furman having been made.
That's a pretty impressive bauble you got her.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Fellow gives a gift like that, he wants more than a piece of her heart, eh? Bit of a going down payment, huh?
Excuse me?
Oh, you know, dear. Sink the sub. Hide the weasel, park the porpoise. Bit of the old Humpty Dumpty.
Mrs. Doubtfire, please.
Oh, dear. No, I'm sorry. Am I being a little graphic? Sorry. Oh. I hope you bring cocktail sauce. I'm being blunt as a spoon, aren't I? Forgive me. Oh.
In the end, Fox did not want to make the necessary cuts, and James Furman maintained that a 12 rating was more appropriate for the film. As a result, Fox reluctantly accepted the higher rating without cuts, and Mrs. Doubtfire was released in UK cinemas in early 1994 with a 12 rating, where it played for around 5 months. But then events took an interesting turn. As we have previously discussed on Cutting Edge, the BBFC in the UK classifies films, that is, movies for exhibition in cinemas, on behalf of local authorities, which grant licenses to cinemas in their respective areas. Although such an occurrence is rare, these local authorities are free to overrule the BBFC's decisions on film. After the initial theatrical release of Mrs. Doubtfire, the BBFC received several letters from members of the British cinema-going public and cinema owners that questioned the BBFC's decision to grant the film a 12 rating, with various parties arguing that the 12 was too restrictive. As the BBFC's annual report for 1994-1995 revealed,
some dialogue from a hilarious but fairly rude speech of sexual innuendo in Mrs. Doubtfire has been released uncut at 12, despite the board's suggestion that the speech be trimmed for PG. We received letters of complaint from parents who had not been permitted to take their children to this film. The American colloquialisms had not only gone over the heads of children, but of many adults as well. The distributors conceded that the sexual references had been inserted solely to achieve a PG-13 in America, where it was considered a more commercial rating than the blander PG.
A letter from a cinema in Scunthorpe informed the BBFC that it had requested its local authority to watch the film with a view to downgrading it to PG, a request that was later approved without issue. The leader of the viewing panel was quoted as saying that the panel found the film humorous, entertaining, sentimental, and wholesome family fun. Similar decisions were reached around the UK, with 38 local authorities that covered 66 cinemas granting an uncut PG rating for Mrs. Doubtfire. 20th Century Fox took note of these events and requested that the BBFC reconsider its decision to classify the film with a 12 rating. As a result, on March 16, 1994, BBFC director James Furman decreed that only one of the 3 cuts that had originally been proposed by him for a PG rating needed to be made. This suggestion was sent to director Chris Columbus for his approval, and in April, an agreement was made to make this one cut for a PG rating. What follows again, for reference, is the contentious scene as present in the uncut version.
Bit of a going down payment, huh?
Excuse me?
Oh, no, dear. Sink the sub. Hide the weasel, park the porpoise. Bit of the old Humpty Dumpty. Little Jack Horny. The horizontal mambo.
Mrs. Doubtfire.
The bone dancer. Rumple foreskin. Baloney bop. Bit of the old cunning linguistics.
Mrs. Doubtfire, please.
Oh, dear. No, I'm sorry. Am I being a little graphic? Sorry. I hope you're up for a little competition.
For the UK theatrical PG version, Furman demanded,
In restaurant scene, when Mrs. Doubtfire describes his wife's sexual habits to her new boyfriend, reduce detailed references to sex by cutting away after the phrase Rumpty Humpty to remove the series of rude slang expressions Little Jack Horny, the horizontal mambo, baloney pop, rumpled foreskin, a bit of the old cunning linguistics, resuming on man's astonished face before his line, Mrs. Doubtfire, please.
After this change, the cut UK version of the scene played as follows.
Bit of a going down payment, huh?
Excuse me?
Oh, no, dear. Sink the sub. Hide the weasel, park the porpoise. Bit of the old Humpty Dumpty.
Mrs. Doubtfire, please.
Oh, dear. No, I'm sorry. Am I being a little graphic? Sorry.
Following the BBFC granting a PG rating to the cut version, the 12-rated uncut version was withdrawn from all British cinemas and replaced with the new censored version, which had been classified on May 6, 1994, after 13 seconds of cuts. At the time this episode was made, the BBFC website contained no record of the original 12-rated cinema version having ever been classified. From here onwards, the UK home video situation becomes a little less than straightforward. To begin with, the pre-cut UK cinema version was submitted for a UK VHS release, where it was passed PG without further cuts on July 8, 1994, and again on January 15, 1997. Sometime in 2000, Mrs. Doubtfire was seen by the BBFC again for its initial widescreen DVD release, after being submitted without a specific request for a rating. Perhaps surprisingly, the BBFC decreed that the film could receive an uncut PG rating. However, Fox formally withdrew this submission because they had already begun proceeding with the assumption of having to master and author the cut version for a DVD release in the UK. A pre-cut version of the film was later resubmitted and passed by the BBFC with a PG rating on June 18, 2001, and was released on DVD that summer in the UK. Although this version of Mrs. Doubtfire was censored, the cuts did not exactly match those decreed by James Furman for the censored UK cinema release. Here is a quick side-by-side look at the restaurant scene, with the UK cinema cuts applied, followed by the same scene as it appears on the 2001 UK DVD. Notice the subtle differences in terms of the missing sexual references.
That's a pretty impressive bauble you got her.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Fellow gives a gift like that, he wants more than a piece of her heart, eh? Bit of a going down payment, huh?
Excuse me?
Oh, you know, dear, sink the sub. Hide the weasel, park the porpoise. Bit of the old Humpty Dumpty.
Mrs. Doubtfire, please.
Oh, dear, no, I'm sorry. Am I being a little graphic? Sorry. I hope you're up for a little competition. That's a pretty impressive bauble you got her.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Fellow gives a gift like that, he wants more than a piece of her heart, eh? Bit of a going down payment, huh?
Excuse me?
Oh, dear, no, I'm sorry. Am I being a little graphic? Sorry. I hope you're up for a little competition.
This cut UK DVD of Mrs. Doubtfire was also released in Australia, much to the annoyance of cinephiles in Region 4 who had been able to enjoy the film uncut since its first release. In 2003, Fox submitted a widescreen print of Mrs. Doubtfire to the BBFC once again for another DVD release, only this time in its uncut version. The company did not request a desired rating, but the BBFC maintained that the film could be passed uncut at PG, as they had decreed in 2000. Although the BBFC had a policy at the time that would not allow cut and uncut versions to be released at the same time in the UK, that policy applied only to films being released with differing ratings. Since both the cut and uncut versions of Mrs. Doubtfire would now both be passed at PG, this policy did not apply, and as a result, the uncut version was passed with a PG rating on November 5th, 2003, with the BBFC noting that the film contains mild language and sex references. A new special edition DVD of Mrs. Doubtfire came out in the UK in late 2007, which was entitled the Family Fun Edition. This was effectively a retitled version of the special edition released in the States, where it was known as the Behind the Scenes Edition. This version of the film was also uncut. Numerous versions of Mrs. Doubtfire surfaced on optical media in the UK in the following years, including a UMD release for the PSP in the spring of 2009. In 2011, the film was released as part of a triple film set containing Big and Dr. Dolittle, with the set sporting a PG rating. Presumably, this set also contained the uncut version of Mrs. Doubtfire. Yet another DVD set featuring Mrs. Doubtfire arrived in late 2014 as part of the PG-rated Robin Williams Family Film Collection, which also contained Toys, Night at the Museum, and its sequel. The version of Mrs. Doubtfire that was included was also likely to have been the same as the uncut 2003 PG DVD. At the time this episode was made, however, Cutting Edge was not able to confirm the cut status of the films contained in these two sets. Mrs. Doubtfire was resubmitted to the BBFC for a Blu-ray classification in November 2012 with a request for a PG rating. However, the BBFC informed the film company that the sexual references were now too strong for PG when tested against their most recent guidelines, which had changed since the film's 2003 submission, and as a result, the BBFC recommended an uncut 12 rating. The film company judged this to be acceptable, and Mrs. Doubtfire was passed without cuts on Christmas Eve, with the board stating that the film contains moderate sex references. To date, the most recent time Mrs. Doubtfire was seen by the BBFC was when it was submitted for a UK cinema classification in the autumn of 2014 in its uncut version. The film was passed without cuts on September the 25th with a 12A rating, with the board noting that the film contained moderate sex references, rude gestures. So, after the many different releases of Mrs. Doubtfire on home video, where does you, the British viewer, go to obtain the uncut version? In short, the best release to get is the UK Blu-ray release, which is fully uncut with a 12 rating. Whilst one or two of the DVD releases may be uncut for one reason or another, the Blu-ray disc's video quality, audio quality and special features improve upon the DVD versions in every respect. You may wish to sit down and watch the film while indulging in a wicked cup of cocoa. Enjoy.